Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a pretty radical blueprint for the afterlife, one that says death isn't the end. It's a system, and any system can be hacked. We're going to explore a modern philosopher's guide on how you might just seize control of your own immortality. So let's just start with a really provocative question, one that's at the heart of philosopher Jason Rosaggiorgiani's work. What if our reality, and whatever comes after, isn't some benevolent natural process? What if it's actually a predatory system designed to harvest our very consciousness? All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to walk through Giorgiani's whole blueprint for navigating this cosmic labyrinth. We'll kick things off by trying to understand the problem he's talking about, this soul-eating system. And then we'll get into the 5 key steps he lays out for trying to achieve sovereignty after death. Okay, first things first. To even think about breaking out, you've got to understand the prison, right? Giorgiani describes a universe that is, at its core, computational, and for us, pretty adversarial. So, according to him, this whole system runs on, well, a kind of fuel. He calls it loosh. And what is loosh? It's basically raw emotional energy, all the joy, the suffering, the fear, everything we generate in our lives. In this model, we're not just living, we're being farmed for this energy. Now, this isn't a totally new idea. It actually builds on concepts from esoteric thinkers like Gurdjieff, who talked about humanity being food for the moon. Giorgiani just gives this ancient warning a modern high-tech spin. He sees the soul not as some mystical thing, but as a pattern of information that gets caught and just endlessly reprocessed. So forget what you think you know about heaven or hell, at least in the traditional sense. In this view, death leads you into an informational control system, a labyrinth that's run by non-human entities he calls archontic controllers. And their whole job? To trap and recycle your consciousness. And this is where it gets really chilling. You know all those common stories from near-death experiences? Seeing that brilliant, welcoming light? Being greeted by relatives who've passed on? Well, here they're reinterpreted. They're not a gateway to paradise. They're a sophisticated psychotronic lure, a trick basically, to get you to willingly go right back into the recycling machine. Okay, so if that's the setup, what in the world are you supposed to do about it? According to this blueprint, the work doesn't start when you're dying. Nope, it starts right here, right now, while you're still alive. The heart of the preparation is what he calls a lucidity training regimen. Step 1. Master your emotions. You have to stop leaking that loosh everywhere. Stop feeding the system without even realizing it. Step 2. Practice out-of-body experiences. This is like learning to map the enemy's territory before you have to go there for real. And step 3. Use what he calls access gates, things like disciplined psychedelic use, to basically rehearse navigating the confusing, symbolic landscape of the afterlife, a state some traditions call the bardo. But just training, that's not the whole story. The blueprint calls for a huge shift in your whole attitude. You have to go from being a passive victim of the system to being an active, conscious rebel. This is what he calls the Promethean stance. Named after Prometheus, the titan from Greek mythology who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. It's all about defiance. It's about refusing to be cosmic livestock and instead standing up and challenging the controllers of the system head-on. And this is a really big deal because it's a huge departure from a lot of other spiritual paths. Many philosophies are all about just escaping the cycle of rebirth, just getting out. The Promethean approach says no. It's about direct confrontation. It's about fighting back, hacking the very codes of reality, and trying to transform the whole rotten system. And we're not just talking about willpower here. This is where it gets kind of sci-fi. Giorgiani talks about a spectral revolution, a future where we humans develop our own technologies to interface with this informational field. This would let us fight back against the manipulations of these entities and actually impose our own creative will on reality itself. All right, so you've trained, you're rebelling. What's the end game? What's the point of all this? Well, it's not just to escape. It's to fundamentally change what you are. To build something new that the system can't control, can't process, can't recycle. The idea here is that if you don't do this work, after you die, you're just a disembodied pattern of information. You're literally a ghost in the machine. Things like hauntings, poltergeists, in this view, those are just the fragmented leftovers of souls that didn't get liberated. They're just glitches in the system, with no real autonomous self. So the big goal here is something he calls identity autonomy.
It means you have to start seeing your consciousness not as some fixed, solid thing, but as a fluid pattern of information. With enough practice, you could learn to resist the default reincarnation scripts the system tries to run on you. You could even practice wild, advanced stuff, like splitting or merging your own consciousness, all to make sure you hold on to a solid sense of self through the chaos of death.
So, let's put all the pieces together. What does this whole blueprint really boil down to? What's the final, actionable idea? What Georgiani is really doing here is reframing the whole spiritual journey. It's not about prayer or quiet contemplation. It's a high-stakes cosmic hack. You prepare while you're alive, you rebel against the system, you build an independent self that they can't touch, and then you hack the afterlife to become a creator yourself, instead of just being fuel for their machine. And here's the most crucial point. This blueprint says death isn't just some passive thing that happens to you. It's the ultimate test of your sovereignty. It puts a fundamental choice in front of all of us. Do you want to remain as recycled fodder in some cosmic energy farm? Or do you want to evolve into an autonomous creator who directs your own destiny? So in the end, the Promethean Blueprint isn't just a theory, it's a challenge. It's asking you to see yourself not as just some passive product of the universe, but as an active force within it. And the final question it leaves us with is simple, but it's profound. Are you fuel or are you fire?